and Walt shares his fears as a leader in very transparent ways. Honesty, humility, and heart, what Walt calls his 3H core, also are clearly evident in this book. You don't just hear about what to do, but you understand how it was done, and learn how to do it yourself so you can develop as a leader. I've seen Walt model these principles in real life many times since we first met at that cafe in Denver. I've seen it during difficult board meetings. I've seen it during our one-on-one conversations in my office. And I've seen it in his interactions with others. One example in particular stands out. Every year, we take a group of students who are in the Uplift program on a trip to Tijuana, Mexico, where we help build homes for families in need. Board members like Walt also come and join our staff and the students as we serve and learn together. One evening, after working all day, I was sitting with a group of students who were engaged in a pretty vocal discussion about sports. They weren't unruly, but the trash talk was flowing at a pretty high level when Walt walked in, bypassed the tables that were occupied only with adults, and asked if he could sit with the group. Frankly, I began wondering how this would go, and silently hoping the students would get a clue that it was time to tone things down. They didn't. The smack talk continued, and the next thing you know, Walt jumps right in the middle of the conversation. He's firing off his opinions about the best teams and athletes, challenging the opinions of others, and generally interacting just like all the students. He was laughing, the students were laughing, they all were having a great time. The fact that he made everyone, including himself, feel included in the moment told me a lot about his heart, his humility, and who he was as a person. Walt practices what he teaches regardless of whether he's on the back of a garbage truck, in a board meeting with executives, or sitting with a group of urban teens in Tijuana, Mexico. That's what makes him the perfect person to tell you about Transfluence, because his words and his examples will have a transformative influence on your leadership. Joseph Sanders, Ph.D., Chief Executive Officer, Colorado Uplift. Retired Colonel and the former Director of the Center for Character and Leadership Development, United States Air Force Academy. Preface. All my plans were disrupted. All of them. The vacation with my wife, on hold. A service project with a nonprofit, canceled. Trips to visit our kids, postponed indefinitely. Board meetings, welcome to Zoom. A night out for dinner with friends. Maybe next year. Everything had to be reassessed in light of our new reality. I'm talking about the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, but here's the interesting reality. I could just as easily be talking about the Great Recession in 2008, or about the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001. There were no Zoom meetings, and I didn't have to travel to see my kids, but those events also caused huge disruptions in my life, personally and professionally. When you think about it, history is nothing if not a series of disruptive events. In the last 100 years, for instance, the world has witnessed the Great Depression, the attack on Pearl Harbor and World War II, the Korean and Vietnam Wars, the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and John F. Kennedy, the Iranian hostage standoff, the Gulf War, and the aforementioned recession and terrorist attacks. The nature of such disruptions might be different, but the essence of great leadership during difficult times remains very much the same. And that's one of the reasons I think you'll find this book particularly relevant to your leadership journey. While it isn't about crisis management, the lessons and principles will resonate with anyone who has led, is leading, or will ever lead during a crisis. I knew that when I was writing the manuscript, but it really hit home during the first few months of 2020. The year began on a high note. The economy was strong, and this book was in the middle of its production schedule. Editors were editing, designers were designing the cover and interior pages, project managers were planning the print run, and marketing and PR firms were preparing to help get the word out. Years of work was coming to fruition when all of a sudden we were introduced to terms like social distancing and self-isolation.